At my graduation dinner, my wealthy grandfather smiled at me. Are you using the $850,000 education fund I created for you? I replied, What fund? My aunt dropped her fork. Grandpa turned to my parents. Interesting. The bank says someone has accessed it. My mom turned pale. Grandpa raised his voice. Tell me the truth now. Hey, Reddit. My graduation dinner was meant to be simple. Nothing extravagant, nothing too emotional. Just a table full of family, a few congratulations, and maybe a speech or two. But life has a way of surprising you on nights you think will be calm. We were sitting in a long booth at my favorite Italian restaurant. The lights were dim, the air filled with the scent of rosemary and butter, and my heart felt light as a feather. I had done it. A degree, a bright future, my own path. Grandpa sat across from me, calm and affluent, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. His silver hair glimmered under the light, and his eyes held the same playful spark they had when I was a child. He once let me eat a whole chocolate bar before dinner. He lifted his wine glass. My clever girl, he smiled. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Grandpa, I said, feeling warmth on my cheeks. Then he leaned in slightly, grinning like he was sharing a secret. And tell me, he asked casually, are you using the $850,000 education fund I set up for you wisely? I blinked, thinking I misheard him. What? Grandpa chuckled. The education fund. I established it when you were born. I told your parents about it when you were a baby. The table fell silent, as if someone had muted the entire room. My mother's hand shook, her knife scraping against her plate. My father shifted, his shoulders stiffening. My aunt, who had been laughing loudly at a story, suddenly dropped her fork, the sound echoing so sharply that the tables around us turned to look. I glanced at Grandpa, bewildered. Grandpa, I don't have any fund. He furrowed his brow deeply. What do you mean? I mean, no one ever told me about anything like that. A tense silence followed. I heard my cousin inhale sharply and my mother make a choking sound. My father pretended to adjust his napkin, but his fingers were shaking. Grandpa slowly set his wine glass down. The sound was like a gavel striking. He turned his head very slowly toward my parents. The warmth drained from his face. Interesting, he said, his voice suddenly flat. Because the bank informed me that someone started withdrawing from the fund years ago. Years ago? My blood turned to ice. My mother looked nearly ghostly. So, Grandpa continued, folding his hands on the table. I'm going to ask this once, and only once. His tone hardened, filled with disappointment. Where is my granddaughter's money? Mom made a sound that was half gasp, half choke. Hey, Dad, I said, it's not. Grandpa didn't even look at her. Tell me the truth now. My father cleared his throat. Well, Dad, we had expenses. Emergencies. We thought you meant the fund for the whole family, not just for my granddaughter. Grandpa interrupted, his voice sharp. I said it was for her education, her life, not yours, not your emergencies, not your hobbies, her future. My mother's voice rose, small and desperate. We always meant to replace it. We planned to. Things just didn't work out. You stole from her, Grandpa shouted, his voice booming. $850,000, stolen from the child I vowed to protect. My heart raced so fast I felt it in my throat. Mom, Dad, I whispered, is this real? They looked everywhere except at me, everywhere except the daughter whose future they had emptied like a piggy bank. Dad finally exhaled, defeated. We used it over the years. For what? My stomach twisted. Mom began to cry. Your sister needed help. Her tuition, her car, her apartment. Then we refinanced the kitchen. Then your father lost his job, and then the wedding, and then the loan we couldn't pay. I stared in disbelief. You spent it on her, on the house, on yourselves. Mom reached for my hand. Honey, please. We raised you. I pulled my hand away. You supported me with money that was mine. Grandpa's chair scraped back as he stood up, towering and furious in a way I had never seen. You too, he growled at my parents, are going to fix this. Dad swallowed hard. Dad, we can't. The money's gone. Grandpa stepped closer, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. Oh, there will be consequences. Legal consequences. Mom staggered back in her chair. Dad, no. He ignored her. Then he turned to me, and his rage turned into heartbreak. My sweet girl, he whispered, his voice breaking. I entrusted them with your future. I never thought they would betray you like this. My eyes filled with tears. Grandpa, I didn't know. I never knew. He placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. You will never go without again. I will make this right. Mom cried harder. Dad, please. We're family. Grandpa turned back to them, his jaw set. You stopped being her family the moment you stole from her. My father whispered. What? What are you going to do? Grandpa took a slow breath, determined. First, you're going to tell her exactly where every dollar went. And second, he pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. Mom screamed. Dad, no. Please, we'll lose everything. Grandpa's eyes remained cold. You already lost my respect. My mother clung to my father's arm, trembling. I sat there motionless, hands in my lap, watching 30 years of family illusions crack open like a fault line. Yet, something inside me wasn't breaking. It was awakening. For the first time, they were finally facing consequences. But nothing, not even the confession, not even Grandpa's anger, prepared me for what came next. Because the next words out of my mother's mouth changed everything. And I mean everything. My mother's words hung in the air like a bad odor. We used it because we needed to survive, she whispered anxiously. Your sister had loans, and then we refinanced, and the interest, oh God, it spiraled. Grandpa's hand gripped the table tightly, the skin around his knuckles turning pale. You didn't need an education fund, he said slowly. You needed impulse control and planning. My father's shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than ever. If the money's gone, Grandpa continued, his voice as cold as ice, we press charges, force an audit, and get lawyers involved. We will trace every penny. Mom's sobs turned into desperate cries. Please, please don't do this in public. But Grandpa had already dialed a familiar name. The family attorney, the same man who had handled wills and estates for generations. Within moments, there was a promise, a meeting scheduled, an audit initiated. A lawyer's voice came through, calm and precise. Start by writing down every purchase, Grandpa instructed my parents. Dates, places, amounts. We will subpoena bank records if necessary. My father coughed out a confession. Claire used it. He blurted suddenly, his voice cracking. She needed help with school, with her car, then Lee's business. One thing led to another. My cousin's face turned pale. You mean she took money from her niece's future? Claire's face flushed a deep red. She stood like a storm ready to break. It wasn't like that, she said, but then stopped. The rehearsed excuses fell apart under Grandpa's gaze. We thought we'd return it before it mattered, she whispered, like a child hiding a broken vase. I felt something sharp and small in my chest, a mix of hurt and anger. She had stolen my nights of studying, my scholarships, the late shifts I took so I wouldn't be a burden to anyone. Grandpa leaned forward, his blue eyes hard as ice. This will not be brushed aside, he said. There will be restitution. If the money is not returned, there will be legal actions. There will also be an official written apology. My mother sank back, shaking her head. We can't pay that back. Not now. Grandpa's jaw remained set. Then we liquidate assets. We make a plan. The priority is the education, the child's future I entrusted. He turned to me, and the fierce gentleness on his face took me by surprise. You deserve every cent, he said. And more than that, you deserve truth. The background noise of the restaurant resumed slowly, forks clinking on plates, quiet conversations, as if life around our small personal disaster was trying to continue normally. My cousin whispered, Are you really going to press charges against family? Grandpa met his gaze. Accountability is not betrayal. It is the only way trust can be rebuilt. Claire then sobbed, her cries raw and ragged. I never meant to steal from her, she choked. I thought I was fixing things. I was stupid. You are selfish, I said, the words coming out clear and fierce. You took a future that didn't belong to you and spent it on the present you wanted. Mom's face crumpled. We were so ashamed, she murmured. We thought if we told you about the fund, you'd be proud, and we'd be helping you. We were foolish. It wasn't foolish, Grandpa snapped. It was theft. He rose then, his voice firm but not unkind. I will fund her education if necessary for my estate, he said. But you must make reparations, and you will formally apologize. My mother covered her mouth in shock. My father's eyes filled with tears. At that moment, I felt a curious weight lift, not the money, not yet, but the long, slow burden of being the only one who cared enough to be wronged. The following days blurred into legal jargon and family drama. The lawyer called us in. Bank statements were subpoenaed. A forensic accountant tracked transfers, tuition payments, car loans, nights out, and the refinancing of a second mortgage taken to pay another bill. One transfer led to another, and a total sum came together as proof. Claire's face grew paler with every page of printouts. I sat quietly in the attorney's office, listening as the cold, professional voice laid out options: restitution plans, liens, civil claims. Is he really going to press charges? Claire whispered one night, her voice trembling. Grandpa's response was simple. If restitution is agreed upon, we'll pursue civil remedies. If not, criminal charges will be considered. My parents wavered between anger and shame. They wanted Grandpa to be lenient, but also to understand their fear of disgrace. Their shame was evident as they realized gratitude, without accountability, had hollowed out our family. Then something quiet happened. Claire approached me one morning, stripped of pride and excuses, just the ruin of a person who finally understood the cost. I'm so sorry, she said raw. I don't know how to fix it, but I will. I will work. I'll sell things. I'll do whatever. I watched her for a long time. For years, I had wanted my family to recognize my hard work and sacrifices. Now they saw me, but through the lens of what they had taken. Recognition felt like ash in my mouth. I want to see proof, I told Claire gently. I want to see a plan. I want to know this will never happen again. She nodded, bowed her head, and left with a list of assets she promised to liquidate. Over the months, the family transformed. There were tough discussions about budgeting, boundaries, and what it meant to be a grown family instead of a performance troupe of favors. Claire got a job. My parents sought financial counseling. The legal steps were slow but genuine. Repayment schedules were established, liens placed and lifted as payments were made, apologies drafted and shared. Grandpa observed the process like a patient gardener, pruning a sick branch so the tree could grow new leaves. One evening, he took my hand and said, "You must live your life, child. You must not let others decide your future." I only wish I had acted sooner. I forgave them, not because everything was healed, but because forgiveness was the bridge I chose to build if they would walk on it with honest intentions. When the final repayment was made, Grandpa raised a quiet toast at dinner. To truth, he said, and to rebuilding. I lifted my glass, the liquid sparkling in the candlelight like a small promise. They had taken my future, but they had repaid it, not just for my sake, but because finally someone had insisted that promises mean something. That night, I slept like someone who had reclaimed her right to ask for what she deserved.